welcome everybody to the latest episode of Collectively Speaking, which is a podcast series where I sit down with some of our members, but also clients and collaborators to really get to know them better. And this series is a bit different because we're going to focus each episode around a topic or a theme, and it's a topic that the speaker will know well, but it will also be a way of really organising and structuring the conversation. Up until today, we've been talking mainly to our members within the LDN Collective, getting to know them better and what they do and how that's making a difference. But today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Jeremy Myerson, who has a number of different roles, as well as being a professor at the Royal College of Art. He is a director of work tech, looking at the future of work, and has written a number of books and papers about that topic, and also co-founder of Healthy City Design Congress, which we're going to be talking more about today. So brilliant topic to be looking at. We're going to be focusing on healthy cities, but I imagine that also has a lot of things to do with the future of work and changing lifestyles and so on. So obviously a lot of crossover anyway. Welcome, Jeremy. Great to see you again.
Thanks very much indeed.
So I think when we first met was a very memorable day for the LDN Collective, because we were invited to perform a play that we had written as a script for the Wolfson Prize about the planning and designing the hospital of the future. And we didn't at all expect anybody to invite us to perform the play, but then the conference organisers, Salus, did. So we took it on, not quite knowing what to expect, and it was a brilliant experience. And that conference was very much focused on designing and planning sort of healthcare related buildings, hospitals, GP surgeries and so on. But the conference that is coming up in October is Healthy City Design, which is obviously a lot broader. So I thought it would be good just to understand and get to know you a bit better, to hear your background, and then we can get on to the healthy cities and your thoughts on that.
Yes, I'm a writer, journalist, academic and researcher in design and the built environment. And my background was writing about architects and designers and buildings and spaces. And then I slowly morphed into academia. And at the Royal College of Art, I co-founded the Helen Hamlin Centre for Design. And this was a cross-disciplinary initiative, and it was focused on inclusive design. So using the skills of architects, product designers, design engineers, textile designers, graphic communication experts, we looked at how you push the boundaries of inclusive design. And inclusive design has led on to issues of social equity and diversity. And a few years ago, as a research centre, we got involved with Mark Sampson at Salus, and he was thinking about a partner conference to go alongside European healthcare design. So he had the healthcare conference looking at hospital buildings, and he wondered whether we could look at the whole city. And so, in a sense, it's widening the frame. It's not just looking at healthcare, it's looking at health. What we quickly discovered, that it wasn't a single community. We were going to have to bring in lots of different people. We were going to have to bring in city governance and policymakers with urban planners, architects, designers, and public health professionals and clinicians. So we were going to bring the world of public health together with the world of the built environment and architecture. So it was a cross-disciplinary approach which interested me a lot, with inclusion and social equity at its base, because health inequality in cities is one of the biggest problems that we face. And how do we create a city environment which, for all citizens, is health-inducing and not damaging? So issues around how we design our housing and neighborhoods, how we organize our work and commuting patterns, issues around how we use waterways and the urban geography to best effect, how that affects food production, issues around public amenity, civic infrastructure. All of these things are determinants. I mean, the built environment is a huge determinant of public health. So we started in 2017 with our first congress, which we held in London at Dennis Lasdon's wonderful Royal College of Physicians building in Regent's Park. And we brought this community together, and it's grown and it's grown. And now it's a very, very exciting development.
I always like to think as broadly as possible when it comes to sort of city making or urban design, because you have to. You can't think about anything in isolation. A city is an agglomeration of people and systems, and how it manifests itself physically is often the subject of a lot of people's attention, but actually the way it works and functions and the sort of the software rather than the hardware is equally important. And I think the outcomes of a well-designed or well-planned city, if it is well-designed and planned, are healthy, happy residents. So it's often looking at it through that lens, as in the outcomes and the condition and the well-being of the residents or citizens or people that use or work in or the city is a really important thing to do. And I think it's also a very hard thing to do, to bring people together from different walks of life to try and find the common ground and understand where what each other does influences things is also not easy, whether it's sort of politicians or clinicians or architects, you know. But I think that people are increasingly recognizing the need to be more collaborative and joined up between the public sector and the private sector, between investment and capital and the end users of buildings, I think is, and that's why I'm a huge supporter of this conference. And I've been going now for 2 years, and it's great that it's now in Liverpool, you know, fantastic city, but also to be able to reach out and understand how other cities work, I think in itself is a worthwhile thing to do. And I know there's plans to potentially locate in another city in the years to come as well.
I'd encourage everybody to go. It's in Liverpool at the Royal College of Physicians Northern Headquarters, building called the Spine, which is a really fantastic building. It's in the Knowledge Quarter up by the university. It's on the 15th and 16th of October. It's called Building a Fairer Future, Advancing Health Equity Through Impact Investment. So we're really looking at impact, investment, trying to go beyond the theory of healthy cities to how it plays out in practice. And that's one of the reasons why we moved up to Liverpool, and we may be moving to other cities. We're talking to Manchester about 2025. But moving to Liverpool, which we did in 2023, gave us a new context. London is wonderful. It's the nexus of knowledge exchange globally. You get a lot of international delegates with a lot of very good experiences. But it's quite hard to nail down a specific context because London is so many different mini cities, if you like. It's a polycentric urban centre. Liverpool has a very specific context and huge levels of health inequality. It's actually my home city. I was born and grew up there, went to school there, so I know it well. And it was an industrial city when I was a child. It deindustrialized, it depopulated, it's repopulated. It's now a city of culture and media and sport and education. So it's been a kind of pioneer in the phases of urban regeneration. And it's grappling with a lot of issues, especially health inequality. What Liverpool has is a very stable and committed city governance, political leadership. They have a very clear vision. And there's a lot of very exciting schemes. So the Spine, where we're having the Congress, is part of the Knowledge Quarter of Liverpool. And there are some fantastic schemes on the drawing board. There's one called Green Lanes, which is trying to create a green passageway right from the city district up by the university right down to the famous waterfront. So they're buying up derelict land and old buildings, and they're looking at an urban park cutting a ribbon through the fabric of the city, and obviously opening up green space, health space, leisure space. It will add to the well-being of the city centre.
Wow, well, that sounds absolutely fascinating. I love the idea of the green lanes, and it made me think about conversations we've been having recently. In fact, with Newcastle City
Mm-hmm.
Council, and I was there not that long ago with a group that visited for an event, and it included Martha Schwartz, the a US but also now UK based landscape designer, and we walked the city together. And she came up with this idea of introducing sort of linear forests from the city centre to the waterfront to sort of radically sort of rewild the city, as it were. And I love that idea. But it's great to hear. It's always good to hear about other initiatives, and that's, I think, the value of the conference for me is kind of learning, what's going on elsewhere, things that might be transferable or at least, spark ideas. And I think the other point that you made around leadership within cities is a really good one. And then maybe we can sort of talk about that a bit more, because it did strike me in Liverpool that there was a very strong leadership and the presence at the conference from the council and also the regional combined authority. There was a strong commitment and a passion for Liverpool tackling the issues that it has in terms of inequality and the role of urban design in doing that, which I think, as I'm sure you agree, is critically important for people, but also for the planet, with, the built environment being responsible for 40% of all carbon emissions. It's where the biggest challenges are, but it's also where the solutions are, essentially. So I think people gathering at a conference like this, it's great to sort of share ideas and exchange knowledge. But on the subject of the leadership, I was recently at an event with the mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and when they introduced him as Dr. Mayor Nick Johnson, I thought, well, that is fascinating. I'm looking forward to hearing from this mayor, whose also day job is as a GP. And he talked very passionately about his vision for Cambridgeshire, Peterborough as a healthy region, and the cities within that becoming healthier in a very broad way. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant. So, what do you think city leaders that might not be have a health background but are very interested in those outcomes? What are the things that you think they can do, to some fundamental things that could improve health and well-being for the people that live and work there?
Well, the biggest thing that city leaders need is evidence. They need data. They need precedent. They need case studies. And then they can implement things that they know are going to work, or they've worked elsewhere. And that's where the Healthy City Design Congress comes in, because we're linking up city leaders with leading academics in the field. And there are a lot of very interesting toolkits, data sets around the metrics of health in the built environment, that cities can actually use these toolkits and assess where they stand. So that's very, very important. And then there's precedence. If you look at a city or a town like Stockton-on-Tees, where very strong local leadership decided they had a terrible 1960s shopping centre with the same old chain stores, and it was, failing badly, and it was a horrible eyesore in the middle of the town. And they made the absolutely radical decision to demolish the thing and replace it with an urban park. And they restored some historic buildings. They allowed local entrepreneurs and retail stores to pop up. They moved away from the shopping centre with the national chains, which were not getting much traction. People were not coming into Stockton-on-Tees. And don't forget that it's one of the most historic towns in England because of the birth of the railway. And so, a radical thing like that has it's not finished yet, but I think it's going to have a huge impact on the health and well-being of the people who use that city. Other side of the world, in Seoul, the mayor of Seoul took a district of the city which had a very polluted elevated 4-lane highway over a river which had been sealed off, actually. And during his 4-year term, from start to finish, he shut off the highway, removed the elevated road infrastructure, opened up the river, created parkland alongside the river. And what was interesting is that they spent a lot of money doing it, but actually it regenerated the area and extended Seoul's business district, because companies said, we like it down there by the parkland and everyone's cycling and there's interesting cafes and a mix of retail and there's a lot of residential and young people are living close to the river. Let's relocate our offices down there. So developers moved in, nice small-scale office buildings, and they've regenerated the whole area and much healthier. And of course, when you haven't got a 4-lane highway polluting the atmosphere, and they worked on public transport to get people through these spaces, and so better air quality, the urban heat island effect was reduced, and they've got the data. It's a fantastic case study that you can show to city mayors in other places.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to follow up on that, and not least because it's incredibly relevant to a project that we started looking at a few years back in Barking and Dagenham in East London, where the borough is sort of cut in half by the A13, which is essentially an urban motorway, similar to the one I think you're describing in Seoul, and it has about 2 kilometres that is an elevated stretch of road. And we came up with the idea of essentially putting that stretch of road into a cut and cover, and then making the north and south of the borough better connected and permeable, and actually giving the residents to the north access to the riverfront, which at the moment is virtually impossible. You have to get in your car, drive along this incredibly busy and polluted road, and then back on yourself in the only place that you can. So that would be a brilliant case study to find out more about. Are they, or have they previously, or are they going to be at the conference and talking about that case study?
I think people from Seoul have been there in the past,
right,
and I've talked about it at the conference before.
Right.
But it's just one example where the political will and the window of opportunity, the mayor said, this has got to happen in 4 years because my 4-year term will be up, and another mayor may not have the same commitment. So there was political commitment, there was engineering ingenuity, there was a very clear vision, and investment was made, and there was impact, and there was a payback, and it has reorganized that area of the city. And different things have been done in different places. I mean, I think what Paris did for the Paris Olympics this year, I went to the Olympics.
So did I.
I couldn't believe what a lovely experience it was. The 3 big factors in urban health is noise pollution, air pollution, and light pollution. Air pollution is probably the number one. And there's been huge debate in London with the ULEZ scheme and low traffic neighbourhoods, and it's been very controversial and has become a bit of a political wedge issue. But there's no doubt that what Paris has been exploring through compact cities and Carlos Moreno, who I had the pleasure of speaking with recently and having lunch with, he was the inventor of the 15-minute city concept. And it's quite a broad concept around how you reorganize urban facilities and services. But there's a lot to be said for reducing commutes, curbing the car, introducing more green space. I think everybody knows what the solutions are. It's whether you've got the political will and the window of opportunity to do it, and the civic leadership.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And but I'd also throw something else into the mix, which is persuading people to change their behaviour as well. Because I think the interesting thing for me about the 15-minute city. My background originally was in communications and public affairs, and then later in life I did a master's in urban planning. So I'm always interested in that sort of crossover between communications and advocacy and urban planning. And I think it was an absolute travesty when the 15-minute city was suddenly used by people to in a way that completely misunderstood the whole premise of it, but it was very successfully used to describe a sort of curbing, rather than curbing car use for people's benefit for air quality, it was curbing it and reducing people's freedom and ability to choose where they went and when they went out. And there was this sort of scaremongering about it being related to sort of Big Brother and people trying to control the way that you act, and it became almost a toxic term in this country, which was bizarre considering how positive the intentions of it are and the outcomes are. So, I mean, I would suggest that that we have a lot of work to do as an industry to make the positive case for these things and combat the alternative paradigm that people try and put across about these things.
If you go back to Victorian times, the birth of the modern city, sanitation, sewage management, public health professionals, the doctors of the day, worked hand in glove with the civic authorities and architects and designers to create the Victorian city and to create the building blocks of the modern city. And over the 20th century, it's been a story of drift where healthcare has become more specialized and the built environment and urban planning and architecture and design has become more specialist. There was a parting of the ways. And what the Healthy City Design Congress kind of said is that we need to re-engage. We need shared dialogue. And that's what's really exciting about the Congress, because you get some really exciting keynote figures from the world of public health. We had Michael Marmot speak about Marmot cities at the 2023 Congress from a clinical perspective. And the room is full of architects and designers and urban planners. And we're doing workshops together. And health is intertwining with the built environment. And that's incredibly important because they cannot be in silos.
So in terms of things to look forward to or keynotes this year, what would you suggest are the things to look out for and be excited to hear from this year?
Well, we're going to get an opening keynote from Matt Ashton, who's Director of Public Health, Liverpool City Council. So he's going to set the local city context. But we're also going to hear from Dr. Natalie Roble, who is the head of urban health for the World Health Organization. So she's going to share international best practice on what's happening, looking at the data. We're going to hear from Yonette Thomas, who is the president and CEO of Urban Health in the US, because there's a lot happening in North America, because there's a lot of problems with health equity. We're going to hear from Lord Nigel Crisp, former head of the NHS, and now an independent crossbench member of the House of Lords. He's talked a lot about a preventative health model for the NHS. We've had in this country a fix it when they're ill model, not a prevent it before they're ill model. And the Healthy City is part of that proactive, preventative approach. If you're going to subject people for years and years to bad air quality, bad light quality, which affects sleep, noise pollution, you're then going to have to treat, the outcomes in terms of air quality, strokes and all heart disease and all the rest of it. So the Healthy City is in everybody's interests. Everybody's talking about big political debate at the moment about the incoming Labour government and does it transform the NHS or does it just try and fix it? How do we improve people's health? And a lot of it is to do, is how we live and work. And people are questioning the old models. And one of the things that interests me most about the Healthy City debate is how it's intertwined with the future of work. So we had the pandemic, and offices were suddenly out of bounds. And planes came out of the sky, and you could hear birdsong in the morning, and cities put in miles and miles of cycle tracks. And we were gonna do more cycling and walking, and less sitting in cars and commuting, and less crammed on the tube and commuting, very long distances. Greater Tokyo, it takes 2 hours to get to work. London has very long commutes, often over an hour. And we thought the world was going to change. And we've been kind of, over the past 5 years, we've been kind of creeping back. But we really need a step change in working life. We can see that the homogenous central business districts of cities are struggling because there isn't the footfall and the local ecosystem of businesses, dry cleaners, restaurants, bars, and so on. They're struggling because there aren't the office workers who are working 5 days a week. So we've got to move towards hybrid cities in the way that we've got hybrid work. And, this means reanimating suburban areas with local workspaces, satellite workspaces. And we're moving to this more idea of the more compact neighborhood, the compact city. And of course, that's quite health inducing. Work is not evenly distributed. So you've got people on 0 hours contracts who don't know how many hours they're going to be working that week, and they don't know how much they're going to earn and whether they're going to cover their basics. And then there are people in well-paid, knowledge worker jobs, professional jobs, who are working 24/7 because they're always on, and they're suffering ill health through stress. So we need to recalibrate and rebalance the future of work. And we also need to look at the office building, which is one of the most important typologies of the urban makeup of the city. We need to look at what they're for, and mixed-use buildings, adaptable buildings, buildings with health-inducing environments, with good food, with light and air, and so on and so forth. That's a big debate in the office real estate sector at the moment, because people have been reluctant, especially in London, where the return to office has been relatively slow. So the global average is now 3.5 days a week, according to the latest McKinsey figures. London is on 2.7 days a week. So it's one of the slowest to get people back to the office. But do we need everybody to go back to the office? Can we move to a model that's healthier?
Wow. Touched on so many interesting things there, Jeremy. And it's brilliant to hear somebody talk about all these things and how they're interconnected. And obviously, COVID was such a shock to the city systems, but equally the way that we're now responding and the common challenges we're facing about, adaptable buildings, about climate change, and about making cities more walkable and livable, and for mental as well as physical health. All these things are absolutely critical to everybody's lives, and I think I'm really looking forward to the conference and to really getting into these issues more and seeing what the outcomes are. I was at a conference in Plymouth just a couple of weeks ago, which was the National Urban Design Conference. And the question that was put to everybody was, do we need a new urban renaissance? Because can you believe the Urban Task Force was 25 years ago? And it did have a major impact on the way that people started to come back to cities, about densification, about reimagining cities. And I think post-COVID, we need to go through that again. And if the nature of retail has changed, high streets and shopping centres, offices become more like homes become a bit of offices. It's about reimagining, adapting, and the continual evolution of cities is something that always fascinates me. So it's been really brilliant talking to you today, Jeremy, and looking forward to Liverpool even more. We're also delighted to be making a film with our filmmakers, UC Media, of the conference, and so watch out for that. And it's a brilliant way of documenting some of the keynotes and discussions, and finding out from people at the time what they think are the really important things coming out of the conference. So hope to see as many people there as possible. and looking forward to visiting the fantastic city of Liverpool. And thanks again for your time today, Jeremy. It's been
I've really enjoyed it.
good stuff, and see you in Liverpool.
See you in Liverpool.